how you be able to get 1% better? What does that process look like for you?
As a plan, my coach, shout out Coach AJ, have a slow pressure cooker.
Based on the scientific research, writing down that plan really ties into the 1% better, because
For the regular person, making little mistakes is okay. But if you want to reach that pinnacle, all the little things matter.
as far as the research goes, habits is a formula.
I think accountability is a great form of changing your habits.
Friends is a part of your habit systems. Have you ever quit, and what was that process like?
Oh man.
It's like, no.
And then my mom found out I quit and she let me have it, man. Literally, since that moment, I never thought about quitting.
Okay, so it's different than the research. I want to talk about your version first. I think this might be valuable for you. There's scientific research on luck. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes, where we do a deep dive into the mental strategies so that you can be able to gain a competitive edge in any sport that you play. I'm your host, Charles, and while I am a licensed therapist, this is only for informational and educational purposes only. This is not substitute for your own individual therapy. If you do need a therapist, please do find one inside your area. Nick Olivier, Division I football player out of Wagner College, going pro for the German Football League and first team all defense, All-GFL. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes. How you doing tonight?
Yes, sir. I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm blessed.
Good. Did I get all the accolades right? Did I get everything correct?
No, you did.
All right.
You got everything right. Just like to add to that, I'm also an up and coming sports performance coach.
Yes. So it's cool to be able to have like that same really similar mind frame. So it's going to be an amazing conversation. I'm really, really happy. I'm just going to dive on right into things. I'm happy you really want to talk about the 1% rule, because it's fascinating. And I think people get the rule misconstrued. I think they think it's, no, it is. If I practice every day, I get a bit better. I get a bit better. I get a bit better. But the 1% rule is way more minute than that. It's digging things down into the atomic level. So I'm fascinated. What is your version of the 1% rule? How would you define it?
My version of the 1% rule is really about embracing the mentality of thinking things through as a slow pressure cooker. It's not something, change and growth is not something that happens overnight, right? It comes through consistent effort, intentional effort, and moving with a purpose to get to where you need to go and the goals that you want to obtain for yourself.
Cool. I like that, moving with a purpose thing, because that's really what it is. It is very, very purposeful, where it doesn't really, it's not actually that much scientific research on it. I couldn't find that much scientific research on it. But the one who made it popularized was the mental, I don't know if he was a mental performance coach, but it was the performance coach for the British cycling team from like 1997 to 2014, I believe, is where he was the mental performance coach for. And so he took on the 1% better rule. And essentially what he did, and why this rule is so important, and why I'm so happy you brought it up, is he, with that rule, arguably with that singular rule, they won 18 gold medals in that span. They won, I took notes here, 6 Tour de France's and 59 world championships as a cycling team, utilizing the 1% rule. So any athlete, especially when you're on the elite side of things, especially when you're on the Division I and on the pro side of things, where you are as a football player, that if you can get that down, and then we start talking about habits, this is going to roll perfectly into habits, that is going to slowly but exponentially accelerate your ability to be able to perform at a high level. So how he defined it was essentially like this. It's everything. So I was talking about this with Dion a little bit. It's to the atoms of what room temperature should you sleep at to be able to get the most optimal sleep, because we all know sleep is extremely important, and if you miss even an hour of sleep, if you get an hour less of sleep, that's going to impact your brain's ability to be able to process and handle information. And on the football field, it needs to happen in a split second. So how is your air, like what temperature is air? Your pillowcase, what pillowcase should you be able to have? The chair that you sit in, what chair should you be sitting in to be able to have the proper form as you're studying film for your upcoming game? Specifically, how much water should you be consuming based on your weight, based on your height, based on how often you work out, based on your workout intensity? When you do work out, what shorts do you have on? You want to have the shorts that are going to allow you to be able to as far as sweating goes, have the perfect sweat to be able to whisk sweat away, so you stay as cool as possible. So then you can work out at a higher level of intensity. That is the 1% rule. Every single thing you can think about, how can you improve that to get 1% better? So what he did for his athletes is they looked at the bikes, since they use bikes, but they said, all right, what can we do to these bikes to be able to make them just 1% faster? And every single day with their body and with their equipment, they broke everything down to that minute level to be able to make those adjustments. So knowing that's how like science defines it. And he wasn't like Dave Brailford is his name. Now he's Sir Dave Brailford because he's so good he got knighted. So literally his
Okay.
name is Sir Dave Brailford. So he's another performance coach for a different team. I forgot which one. But knowing how that's how the research defines it and knowing how this is how Dave used it, how do you think you implement the 1% rule to get better every single day? Or how did that maybe shift your mindset a bit for you thinking about, all right, how can I make shifts and make adjustments?
For me, going back to what I told you before, I was always that person that wanted to go, 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 go.
Mm,
And my mentor and my coach, shout out Coach AJ at
mm,
Get Right to Get Left. He was always telling me like, Nick, come on, like really just have a slow pressure cooker.
mm,
And I didn't really get that until I almost got hurt. I was training and it was like right before my season was about to start, and I was doing a routine break, and my knee buckled on me, and I caught it just in time, and I was just like, man, I see what you mean. And that's when I really started to pay attention and really started to dive in on what it meant to be or have that mentality of a slow pressure cooker. And I see with based on what you're saying, it's the exact same thing. When you're going out in your lift or you're programming in your lift, it's all about phases.
mm,
You can't, especially being a football player, our off season or our season in general is very physical, right?
right.
So you have to start from the bottom, rebuild a foundation for yourself, and then from there continuously progress in your intensity
Mm,
um as it goes on. And that's not something that happens overnight. Like I said, there's certain workouts, certain um patterns that you have to go through in training to be able to have your body perform optimally,
yeah.
or else you'll be breaking yourself down. That's the really what sticks with me. You don't want to break yourself down in the off season, right? You want to rebuild yourself, and that's what it really comes down to. And once you do that, you set yourself up for success when the season starts and further on into the season.
Mm. I love that. Like that slow. Now I get what you're saying as far as the slow pressure cooker goes. It's going to take time, and that's important. And I think just having that mindset that things are going to take time is extremely important because if you come into it with the mindset, if you come into sports with the mindset of everything has to happen immediately, you got to move slow to be able to move fast, right? So it's my question for you on top of that is I know that mentality came from your coach, but concretely, how did you instill that value of moving slow and progressing slow? Is it that you talk with your coach to be able to come up with a certain game plan for you how to be able to get 1% better each day? Is it something that you dig into on a personal level and figure out yourself how you be able to get 1% better and become that slow pressure cooker? What does that process look like for you?
It really starts with, I think when it's all said and done, it comes down to you as a person, because not every person is the same,
Mm,
and I'm not the same person as my coach, right? And with that being said, I like to do things as a plan. So I'm a writer. I like writing things down, um, keeping track of how I'm doing in the day. So an example of that would be, okay, I see myself tired.
mm,
Like I see myself tired midday. What are things that I need to do to recharge that battery? And
yeah.
then, okay, let me sit down with myself, being okay with sitting down by myself and coming and formulating a structured plan to just add one thing into my routine. You know,
Mm,
because my day is considered, I consider my day as a routine.
mhm,
You know, and just inserting little things every day is something different. Based on the exterior factors that I have to handle, and also with myself on a daily. So it really comes in before I start anything. Always write down a plan, and then I follow that plan to the T.
mm,
And anything else within that from a day to day basis, I remove or I apply.
mm,
And it stems from whatever it may be, from sleep to eating the right things.
mm.
That's what I would say.
So you literally just write things in, and then you have
Yeah,
that, and it's like a daily thing for you to be able to write things in and make a plan
yeah,
daily. Ooh,
yes.
ooh, okay, okay. I like that. I like that strategy because, like you mentioned, everyone's different. Some people might write things in. Some people might put it into their phone. Some people might just have it in their head. Some people might get it from their coach to be able to fill it out for them, or a nutritionist to be able to fill out for them, depending on the resources that they have around them. I think any way that someone does that is all good. I think the important piece is at least documenting it. And when we talk about goal achievement is a really big thing, is to achieve any goal, one of the biggest things is to be able to write down what your plan is and then document in what's called progress monitoring your plans. I think what is really effective for what you're doing is literally writing out your plan. Actually, does three different things, four different things: time management, goal achievement, habit formation, which we're not there yet, and also a technique called habit stacking, which we'll get to as well. So habit and habit stacking we'll get to, but I know based on the scientific research, writing down that plan is the essential aspect for goal achievement. It's what you're doing each day. And then you're also monitoring that progress of, okay, I slept for this many hours, I still feel tired. So I need to make some adjustments. So let's make those adjustments immediately. And you can make those adjustments because you knew what your plan is, you knew what you did. So any athlete should be writing down your plan in some way, shape, or form. It could be Google Calendar, it could be on your phone, it could be on paper. Doesn't matter how you do it or where you write it, but it should be written down as a plan so then it can be adjusted. And then that really ties into the 1% better because it's, oh, I drank this amount, I ate this, it wasn't enough energy. I need to get more calories in my system to be able, or more carbohydrates in my system, or whatever case may be, to be able to perform. So I need to make this adjustment so I can get more out of my workouts, which is going to relay onto the field. And then also, time management is another thing I want to throw in there. The best strategy for time management is literally writing it down. There's like, I've read about like four or five, I think maybe six different scientific research articles on time management. Yeah, it's pretty much just writing it down. If you write it down and going a bit deeper than that, you can write it down with times or not with times. So you can say, 6 a.m. to 6:30, 6:30 to 7 a.m. You can write it down like that. However, and the research kind of goes back and forth on this, and you kind of alluded to it as well, as stuff happens in life. So the issue if you write down things with times is, let's say, I don't know, like your pipe bursts in your house or something else happens in your house, and then your 6 to 6:30 is screwed up, and now you have to adjust everything else, and you feel like you have to cut things out. So if you write down your daily schedule without the times, it helps keep things a bit flexible. Like, yeah, stuff happens. So then you can just still do what you have to do for the day and you can make adjustments. And while maybe you don't get the full hour workout in, you get 45 minutes in because you have to do other things, that you still worked out for 45 minutes. You still improved yourself. So you still got 1% better in that terminology. So I think the way you have that, just that initial system is set up for goal achievement, for time management, and then for habits when we get into it. I think that's fascinating. So when did you start developing that, and how did you develop that as an athlete, that system of writing things down?
It really started when I was in community college at
Mm,
Nassau. That's something they really harped on for us to do when we're watching film
mm,
and overall in meetings. Write things down. Always have a notebook on you. Always have a pen with you, because there's things that are said in the meeting that you're gonna forget. There's so many things that's going on outside of the world that we're living in that you get distracted at times.
mm,
We're human, and that was something that always was big for me. And it started off just for that.
Mhm.
aspect, and then I gradually took it outside into, so to speak, outside of football. That
Yeah.
is, into my daily habits, and you know what are the goals that I want for the day,
Mm.
right? Three goals. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't overload yourself with goals. But what are three goals that I want to get done for today? Minor goals, and just building small wins.
Yeah.
Because what I learned is that by writing things down, you're making a subconscious implant.
Mm.
So when it's all said and done, or you get close to the end of the day, it might pop into your head that, oh, I didn't finish one thing. Let me
Mhm.
go ahead and finish that up. So that's really where it came from.
Mhm. And how do you feel like, because your journey is fascinating, because you were in community college, you went through COVID, you had then you went to D1. Did you skip a year because of COVID as far as playing football goes? Were you able to play?
No, so I actually committed right in Nassau 2019, and
Mm.
then literally like a week or 2 weeks after I committed, COVID hit.
Mm.
So I already committed to Wagner, and they still they still wanted to continue their season. So we had a spring season,
Mm.
and there was a lot of regulations. We couldn't go outside our dorms too much. I had to wear the masks,
Yeah.
had the hybrid calls, practice 3 times a week. But yeah, it was we still got out there and did it. It was brutal, but it was worth it though.
Oh, yeah. So you went from community college to D1 and then to the pros. So, do you feel like that foundational system you have of writing things down and getting 1% better was how much of a role do you think that played in you being able to constantly build the achievements and the success and going towards your goals? How much do you feel like that played a role into it?
Absolutely a major role.
Mm.
Um, uh, I wouldn't say I give everything to it, but it definitely played a great percentage of helping me get to the position that I'm in right now, because it made me realize that once you do achieve your goal, there's new goals that you still want to achieve
Hmm.
and have, if you're the one that's ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
And you mentioned now your new goal is to be able to get to I'm gonna get the acronym wrong, but the European League,
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
ELF, the European League of
ELF,
Football.
yeah, because is Europe football structured the same way as soccer, to where you have all these like tiers per se, and then you have to like
Yeah,
continue to climb the tiers and whatnot. Okay,
yeah.
so
Hmm.
GFL is the second highest tier. Is that correct? You have
Hmm.
like GFL 1, GFL 2, and then you have other
Yeah.
ones. Okay, all right. 'Cause
I think there's four.
there's four. Yeah, it's a lot. So that's dope. I mean, like, especially like going into GFL one and then dominating so much that you then end up on the first team all defense. So I think that's a fascinating goal to be able to have. And anyone listening, that is a strong foundation. Just writing down your plans and then making adjustments so we can constantly be able to improve. And I would still say, I mean, I did mention it. Do you feel like you're going to go ahead and start looking at everything as a 1% better, as far as like clothing, as far as how you work out, as far as things you drink? Are you gonna go that deep into it, or are you gonna stay just where your solid foundation's at?
Nah, I'm gonna go, deep into it. I
Yeah.
I, I like to think of it as a lifestyle.
Mm.
If you truly want to get better, right, you really have to embrace that 1% better rule, because you never stop learning. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing that someone that I came across literally only one time in my life. He told me, and he was like, "You're never gonna stop learning."
Yeah.
And he was in his 80s, and for him to say that, I really embraced that and took it to heart.
Yeah. There's so much to learn. So all right. So out of all those things, what is one thing that you think you might change or look into rather? Is it like that sleep temperature, or is it like water consumption? Is it like what you're wearing dry fit for your clothes? What's one thing you think you might dig into?
I'll give you two. I say the first one, definitely sleep.
Mm.
Uh, just making sure that I'm fueled, and I have been working on it, but there's still things I feel like I need to improve in that department.
Yeah.
But also meal prep.
Mm,
Meal prep is one thing for me that I really want to dive in and buckle down with, because I have a goal to gain weight,
yeah.
and I've always had a fast metabolism, and always burning the calories as soon as
Yeah.
I take it. So
Hey, that
that's
stops
what I would
after a
say.
while. That stops after a while. Once you start hitting 27, 28, 29, 30, that's gonna slow down. It's gonna slow
I'm
down.
waiting. I'm
So
waiting.
wait, that's gonna slow down,
So,
man. I
yeah.
think it's fascinating. For the bed thing, I don't remember the name of it. And I think it costs like 3 or 4 grand. I think it costs like 3 or 4 grand. But dang, I don't remember the name of it. But you know Marquise Brownlee, the YouTuber, the tech
Hmm.
guy, he uses it.
Yeah.
So if you just type in like Marquise Brownlee, like bed topper, a video should pop up. Basically, it's like goes on top of your bed and it cools and adjusts for your sleep for like the optimum sleep temperature. And then there's a subscription. So you can pay like 2 or 3 grand, then on top of that get a subscription and it will track your sleep quality and will measure how good of a sleep you got. And then it'll adjust the temperature. So you don't have to worry about like your room temperature adjusting that all the time, but it will adjust the temperature of your bed to help you be able to
Mm.
achieve a better sleep. I think also too, I think that's why all the NFL players have a sleep number bed. Like they're all sponsored by Sleep Number. I think that's one of them as well. But you can definitely do that for sleep, that topper. And then also um for nutrition, I would say I wonder if insurance has like a if you can call for like a nutritionist, even like a consult or two. Like even if that would take you out for copay, like 20, 40 bucks or whatever case may be. I wonder if
Okay.
nutritionists would be able to help out with that just real quick. You're like, all right, look, this is where I'm at. This is what type of athlete I am. This is what my metabolism looks like. What tips can you give me? You know, I might
Hmm.
only have you for like 2 sessions because insurance is like, you don't need it. You're a pro athlete. Like, get out of here with that. But like, even if they give you
Hmm.
2 sessions, but yo, look, just tell me how I can be able to improve my meal prep. So I think there's definitely ways to get creative and figuring out creative and also dropping a bunch of dough to be able to improve on that 1% better thing. But if someone doesn't have like 3 grand to spend on a bed mattress, right? Then I think it's just using Google and just using the internet around you. What should my optimum temperature be when I sleep at night? Oh, it should be set at 68. All right, cool. What is the best type of bed sheets for me to be able to have the most breathability in? All right, it should be like this. All right, cool. All right, does Apple Watch measure my sleep? How accurate is that? Pretty decently accurate. Cool. Let me be able to cop that. So there's so many different ways people can be able to use the internet to be able to get that 1% better. So I'm glad we spent a lot of time on that because I think that's overlooked and I think it's meticulous. And I think people will say, that really doesn't matter. Like that's just a little bit of something, but it really does make that big of a difference in everything. And again, everything is to be able to win. So it's going to improve your overall performance. All right, cool. Let's dive into habits. I think habits plays off the 1% rule really well. And as far as the research goes, habits is is a formula. So you have, and it's how your brain builds habits. I have the book Atomic Habits behind me. It's an extremely popular book. I think it's a really, really good book that has a lot of good systems in it. I think that's fascinating by James Clear. But the research on habits is the formula is as such. You have your cue or a stimuli. Basically, your brain gets cued or stimuli from the environment that it's in. When you're in the kitchen, it cues you to be hungry. When you step on the football field, it cues you to be able to be ready to be able to play football. That's why meditation and imagery is really important because you can be able to train and build that cue faster by having that imagery in your mind. And like you mentioned, writing things down too creates, as you write it, creates that, at least for a split second, that quick mental image. So later in the day, you remember it because your mind has already talked about it with itself. So anyway, you have the cue slash the stimuli, and then you get a feeling, and then you typically do some type of action or behavior, and then you get a reward from it. And I think any habit basically follows the same line. I always use the kitchen example because it's the most common. You walk into your kitchen, that is a stimuli. You then feel hungry. That then your action or behavior is to go get some type of snack or some type of food, and then that fuels your reward system, especially if it has sugar content in it, because then your brain is like, "Oh, this is good. I feel fuller. It tastes good." Or like the crunchiness of it was what I needed at that point in time. That's the reward system. And then the more that happens, then that's how you build a habit. And a habit can be built in a short, I think that's like 20 days all the way up to like 250 something days. It's a crazy wide range. Everyone thinks 21 days, but that was actually misquoted from an article. It's really like between 20 and 250, depending on what you
Okay.
set up your environment to be. If you want to eat healthier, like if you're like, you want to be better at meal prep, and it's going to be diving into how you change habits. But if you want to be better at meal prep, but then you just keep on buying junk food from the grocery store, it's going to take you like 200 days to build that habit. But if you change what you do, and instead of buying junk food, you buy only healthy food, you just buy it off of, whether you buy it online and then you go to drive and go pick it up, so it's already purchased, but you can't go in the store and wander and grab some things, then that's going to help generate your habit of eating healthier, because that's all you have in the house is healthy food. You don't have a choice, really, unless you make the really strong decision to go out and like order takeout or something. So for you, how do you feel like, knowing what that formula is, how do you feel like you set yourself up to have strong habits? Because to get to where you are, you have to have strong habits. So how do you feel like you set yourself up to have those? What strategies do you also employ and use?
I would say being okay with separating myself.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is, you know, giving an environment, giving a healthy environment to yourself. I think a lot of times people they want to hang around like a group of people to, you know, feel better about themselves.
mm-hmm,
And I think like that in turn takes away from the gift that you actually have, or the gift that you know about yourself, you know, through spending time. And I spent you know, they call it hermit mode.
mm,
But, you know, those times that, you know, I was by myself is when I allowed my imagination and my vision to run free. And I was able to truly see what I wanted for myself.
mm,
And an example of that would be, you know, for the longest, I always wanted to train with my friends. I always wanted my friends to come train with me. But
yeah,
then it came to a point when it's like, man, I got to get this working regardless.
mm,
You know, I got to do it by myself. And I think that came from, you know, I wasn't confident in the sense of, you know, getting work in by myself. And
mm,
by doing that, you know, I broke free from that feeling. But also, you know, I was able to be creative because I'm doing what I want to do and what I like to do and what I feel is better for me and best for me to grow.
yeah,
You know, sometimes what people want to do to get better isn't necessarily the best for you.
right.
So that's what I would say.
I love that. I love the hermit mode, and I think there's positives and negatives to going hermit mode, right? Hermit mode, you can move with speed, you can move fast. So if something's not working, you can change it very, very quickly. You don't have to go to all your homies and be like, yo, instead of doing this, can we do this type of workout? Because I found this might be better. Then you could just next day, like, all right, let's make this change. Like you mentioned in your notebook, you have that speed where this happened yesterday. I'm making this change starting today, immediately. So the hermit mode is speed stuff. And I think I love that you mentioned friends, because friends is a part of your habit system. It's part of everyone's habits. When you're around certain friends, that is a stimuli that cues a certain feeling, that cues a certain action or behavior. And interacts with your reward system. So, let me know if this is on point or not. But when you're with friends, even though like they're good friends, and it sounds like yours wanted to train too, right? So they're good friends, they have good intentions, and so, but when you're around them, that helps your stimuli, your brain to be like, all right, now it's time to train in with my homies. Cool, cool, cool. That produces that feeling and the action or behavior. And the reward system that you might get from that is, like you mentioned, you feel more confident about what you're doing and how you're working out. Because I did it with my homies, I did it with my friends. So you had to get comfortable with just to be able to do it by yourself. So I wonder for you if that reward system, or why you want to work out with your friends, is because that's what made you feel confident and getting that good work in. And if you worked out by yourself, you didn't get that same level of reward system. Is that on point, or is that like missing the mark?
I would say it's it's on point. No, not saying it's like I said before, like the friends, I was hanging around the wrong type of friends,
Right.
but I would say, nah, yeah, everything is on point. No, I'm not gonna overcomplicate it,
Mm.
but I think that not having confident enough, not being confident enough in my abilities yet to really trust where it's like, I want to get this work for me,
Mm.
instead of we are getting better. Like we're all getting better. I feel like in a sense to really make it to a high level, you got to be selfish in a sense,
Mhm.
and not in a bad way,
Yeah.
but just going back to you want to do what's best for you.
Yeah.
And through that, I found new friends, that want what's best for them too, but we're able to both agree on certain things regarding training. Like, by doing that, I formulated a new mentality. And
Mm.
then I met somebody else that has that same mentality that I have currently,
Yeah.
that I gained from breaking free from that. And
Mhm.
now we're both elevating
Go deeper into that.
on another.
Go deeper into that? What do you mean by like you guys you had different friends that had the same mentality, kind of had the same type of rules? But what do you mean by that?
Right. Um, I think it comes down to your mission.
Mm.
Simply put, the people that you hang around, I feel they have to be on a similar mission as far as what they want for themselves. And what they want for themselves can be very general, but through that, you gain, wisdom and knowledge
Mhm.
from them, because the overall factor of what their mission is naturally aligns with what you want for yourself, whether that being success or a success in a certain path.
Yeah.
Some people want success in one path and you want success in another path. And, those paths they may separate into different lanes,
Mm.
so I think it came down to my mission of getting better didn't align with their vision of getting better. So I
Mhm.
went my own path. I was okay with being in my own path of what I wanted to get better. And through that, I found new friends on that path that I went on to get better,
And
if that's a good way to simplify it.
yeah, do you feel like that new friend path kind of helped? Do you feel like that helped drive you more? Like, even though you had your own
Definitely.
independent mindset, like I'm gonna get it no matter what, but having
Hmm.
that friend group that had the similar values and around your same level helped drive you even further.
Definitely.
Mm.
100%. 100%.
Mm.
Because now, just you obtain that mentality of getting to a certain destination, and now you have another person that is fighting to get to their destination themselves of what they want, and now you bring both of those energies together, and it creates a spark in a sense,
Mhm.
of, man, I need to go harder because he's going hard. And oh man, maybe I took a day off, or I feel like I took a day off, but he got his work in today.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm slacking. I need
Mm.
to get back up to him.
I call it the Peloton effect. There's research on it. Not on the specific, it's not called I call it the Peloton effect, but there's research on comparing yourself with other individuals. So, you ever rid on a Peloton bike before?
Yeah, I actually have one.
Yes. So it's literally the Peloton effect. So what they found was that it's fascinating. So if there's someone that, you had the whole leaderboard for Peloton and it's cool. If there's someone that is way below you, that doesn't really motivate you. You're way too far ahead of them, right? So it's like, all right, that's cool. They're riding with me too. No big deal. Now, if there's someone right around you, that motivates you, especially if they have a very similar goal. And in Peloton, you're all, at that point, you're riding for the same ride, the same class, whatever. So that person pushes you and you push each other just naturally. So you mentioned like the environment that you set for yourself. We're kind of deviating from habits a bit, but it's loops into habits. The environment that you set for yourself creates that stimuli, right? So that new friend group now creates a different stimuli. and that creates a different set of feelings. So that creates different actions and behaviors, and that creates a different reward for yourself. It's still the same formula. What you did is you changed the stimuli, you changed the cue. Like your kitchen, you can't change your kitchen. You can't move it, right? You can change what's in it. Your friend group, you can change your friend. I mean, those people still might be your friends, right? Like you don't just start slashing people off, but they can still be your friends. But you changing who you're around physically is a different stimuli, it's a different cue. But back to the Peloton effect. So when you find friends or people that are on your same level, around your same level, that is actually going to physically help push you and motivate you. What's interesting is if someone's too far ahead, that doesn't motivate you. If you're running a race and they're already in front of you by like a half a mile, it's like that. I'm not catching them. That's not going to motivate me. But what does motivate you if there's someone who's already made it. So the person that you're looking at on the Peloton screen, they've already made it. Like where your physique is where you be, or the speed you want to be, that motivates you. So a pro NFL player, in a sense, one that you might admire. Who's your favorite NFL player?
Tyrann Mathieu.
All right, cool. All right, okay, all right. Honey Badger. So if Honey Badger motivates you, then he's Honey Badger, right? That's his nickname. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, make sure I got it right. So Honey Badger, he's technically way ahead of you of where you want to go, but he's motivating because that gives you a glimpse of where you can be. So as far as motivation and comparison goes, and it gets a little bit dangerous because we got to talk about self-esteem and peer influence here. But when it gets to motivation, if you find somebody that's around your level that has very similar goals of where you want to go, that can be extremely useful because that person can help push you. If you have someone that you look up to and you're motivated with that's already where you're at, that can be really helpful and that can push you. If any athletes listening to this and you look around, you don't have anyone around you that's like you, but you have a lot of people that's under you, then that's not very motivating. You might want to shift who you're around. You might want to shift your environment a bit so you can get a little bit of that extra edge. So you just get a little bit of that extra push. It's going to pull a little bit more out of you. That's just how human motivation works on an instinctual level, from the core level. So that's fascinating. And I think tying this back into habit formations I talked about is there's different ways to change your habits. Let's get into that a little bit. So if you know the formula, then you can pick a part of how you want to change your habits. You can change the stimuli or change the cue, which is sounds like what you did with that friend group. The feeling is kind of the feeling would change on its own, so I could dive into that. But the other big thing is you can change the action or the behavior. You can take that away. The food example is a really good example. If you don't have any unhealthy food in your kitchen, you can't eat unhealthy food. It doesn't matter that your stimuli is the kitchen. It doesn't matter if you still feel hungry. If you replace the Oreos with grapes, you don't have a choice but to eat grapes. So if you can shift like physically what the action or behavior is, if you like get up in the morning and you get coffee every single day, if you just take a different route that doesn't have, and that's hard as coffee, but if you take a different route that doesn't have a coffee shop to it, you're less likely to actually be able to get that. And then what your brain does is eventually changes the reward. And you can also help that too. So going back to your workout example, is the reward could be I got in even better work today because I worked out with someone that's on the same wavelength as me. I feel like I got better today than if I did it on my own. So that's the reward system. So every time you see that person, it's like, oh, what's up? Like we're competitive. Like, yo, let's work. Like, yo, damn, chill, Nick. You're like, nah, bro. Like, let's get this work in, bro. Damn, I thought you wanted to recharge your battery. Nah, bro. Let's hit some sprints because that is a cue to your brain of like, no, it's time to put work in, and that's the action behavior you get, and the reward is like, no, we're gonna get better out of this, and that becomes a habit. So you can be able to change your habits by either attacking the cue or changing the cue and attacking the action behavior, and then thinking about, like you mentioned, like you're sitting with yourself and thinking about what reward do I get out of this, and then actually cognitive reframe what reward you're getting out of that, and that's how you can be able to develop habits for yourself. And then yeah, so let me know what you think about that first before I dive into a little bit of self-esteem stuff.
I also think having somebody to point things out that you're not doing correct
Mm,
per se is
mm,
also a good identifier of fixing your habits. Having someone in a position to where, listen, you said you wanted to do this, and I'm gonna hold you to that standard, and you're not upholding, and you're not living up to that standard.
yeah.
let me say, I wouldn't be the right person, or I wouldn't be a good person if I didn't tell you this, right? Someone holding you accountable. I
Mm,
think accountability is a great form of changing your habits as well.
mm,
And to add to that, in the sports performance world, so using data sports science also, I feel like, allows athletes to be accountable of what it is that they're doing. And an example of that is an output sports sensor. So what that tracks is, it tracks certain things like, your range of motion
mm,
and the variability between your right leg or your left leg, let's see, with how flexible one is. So if your right leg hits a number that's let's say that it has a score of 44,
mhm.
and your left leg has a score of 36, this shows that there's a big difference in the elasticity of your muscles.
Yeah.
So that's letting you know as an athlete, okay, there's something that I need to do to increase my range of motion so that the variability between my right and left leg gets more gets centered together,
Yeah.
or closer together, right? Because the more the variability, the higher the chance of injury,
Mhm.
right? So if you want to stay active, or stay available throughout your season, it's important to also know, okay, the habits that I'm doing aren't necessarily the best for optimal performance. So I
Yeah.
need to change something right now, or something bad can happen.
Mm,
So learning that aspect as well is also very important. Accountability, I would say,
mm. Do you have an accountability partner?
for sure.
Hey, nice.
My mentor, Coach AJ. As I mentioned before, we talk every single day, and he's one of those people that if I'm not upholding that standard that I told him that I wanted to get to,
Mhm,
he'll get right on me. Like, listen, you told me you wanted to be great. This is what it takes to be great. And for the regular person, making little mistakes is okay. But if you want to reach that pinnacle, you know, all the little things matter.
mhm,
Presentation, being on time by 5 minutes, and by 10 minutes, and by 20 minutes, all those things make a difference of how you look as an upstanding young man, or man in general, and a person.
mhm,
Um, and not missing days, and not missing days also plays a major part. So I give a lot of credit to him, for sure.
yeah, I never got a chance to talk about accountability partners on the podcast. I'm glad we'll be able to do that because that's also in the research too. Having an accountability partner, especially when it comes to that social comparison, because the accountability partner is there to be able to hold you accountable. It actually does a and it actually has a couple good things. See, now we're rolling into procrastination research, which I don't want to start deviating everywhere, but I think that's cool because procrastination, no one's ever brought up procrastination before yet. And I want them to. So when someone does, I'm like, yes, one day they will. I can dive deep into it. But I think accountability partners is something that someone should have because you share your goals with that individual. And actually, going back to goal achievement research, is writing it down is really important. But when you actually tell someone else your goal, that's also very important because it holds you accountable by default. What they found is when people actually tell their goal, whether they tell it to a person or whether they write it out on social media, whether they write it in a tweet or whatever, or whether they make like a thread, a tweet, I don't know, go on Facebook, I guess. If you go on Facebook and no one's on there, but you just write out whatever your goal is, that actually
Yeah.
holds you more accountable because now it's out there in the public. So someone can do that if they don't actually have an accountability partner. Hell, if someone actually wants an accountability partner, just DM me. Um, that is a really, really crucial strategy that you do because they know what your goals are. They're aligning what your goals are, and they're gonna help push you for what your goals are. And then on the data side of things, I love that you mentioned the data because that and tying with habits is you gotta find out what habits you need. So if you find out there's a deficit and there shouldn't be a deficit, then you know that okay, I need to make an adjustment in my habits. I don't currently have a habit for stretching, or maybe my habit for stretching is a stretch for 5 minutes, like just 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I actually need to change that and adjust that and make it a habit for me to stretch for 10 minutes. And maybe my reward system out from that is I get to talk to my accountability partner about that. Or the other flip side of that reward is maybe I get like some type of like punishment. Like, like you're not five, but like you get like a punishment of you're just like, yo, are you really trying to do what you say you're trying to do right now? So you get consequences in that sense. So I think having an accountability partner and also being able to utilize data to be able to inform how your habit should be is really effective. And two things that I forgot about habits I don't want to miss out on is your environment. I mentioned it briefly, but your environment is extremely important. The more you can make things automatic in your environment, it's going to help you able to build your habits. Just in the environmental space is going to be extremely important. And then also habit stacking is this is something it sounds like you do is the definition of habit stacking is to squeeze in a new habit in between two pre-existing habits. For example, so let's say you find out that you need to stretch better to improve mobility. So let's say, all right, I usually come home from work. After I come home from work, I change my clothes and then I get ready to make dinner or whatever the case may be. So your natural habit is to come home from work, get into a change of clothes, and then make dinner. If you say, all right, I need to stretch more often. I stretch in the morning already, but I want to do an afternoon stretch session, especially from if I'm at work, sitting down all day, whatever the case may be. I'm going to push that habit into after I get home and change my clothes. Then I'm going to stretch first, and then I'm going to make dinner. So you just stack the habit in between two pre-existing habits. So you could set that up in that way. And you can combine that with setting up your environment for habits to make it automatic. For example, when you work out, if you put your workout clothes in the same room that you work out, or if you put your workout clothes by the door if you travel somewhere to go work out, that is going to be able to make formulating that habit easier because there's just less friction, there's less distractions, there's less chances to do something else. Everything is like, oh, my clothes are right here. I put on my clothes, I grab my keys, put on some deodorant, hopefully, and then go out and do my thing. It's stacked that way and it's automatic. So back to the example of getting home and stretching more, let's say you instead of having your clothes like in your drawer, you take those clothes and you lay them out the night before, like where you want to do your stretches at. So when you get home, naturally you gotta go do your clothes, but now you're already there with the yoga mat already laid out. It's like, all right, cool, I'm already here. Let me just get my stretches in. It's automatic in that sense. So you can be able to make those small adjustments just to make things easier for your brain because how if it was easy, I would pull that book out. It's up there. But like how habits are formulated is basically it starts here, then eventually it gets more automatic, and then it kind of just levels off and it just stays here. It's never 100%, but like gets up to like 90% and just like pretty much stays there consistently. And you mentioned if you miss a day, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world for habits. If you miss a day, it's not going to ruin your whole habits. If it's like 2 or 3 days, it won't ruin your habit. If you miss a bunch of days, that will, but missing one or two is no big deal for habit formation. So I almost forgot to add that in there. But yeah, habit stacking and making things automatic is really, really critical in your environment. Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Let's talk about quitting. That's one no one's asked about before. I'm excited you asked about that. Let's talk about quitting because there's actually scientific research and research calls it goal abandonment. And there's like this little chart about the best ways to quit and the worst ways to quit. And quitting isn't as bad as it sounds. But let me ask you. You said you want to talk about quitting, so I'm glad. What was your thought process when it comes to quitting? Um, Yeah, I'm curious. And have you ever quit and what was that process like?
Oh man.
He's like, no.
Oh, oh man. Um. So I really wanted to pick quitting because I feel that has been my testament for the reason why I really made it to this position where I'm at.
Hmm.
I wasn't the biggest player. I wasn't the fastest. I certainly wasn't the strongest player, but I was the one who just didn't quit.
Yeah.
And no matter what happened, no matter what is happening currently, I still see my light at the end of the tunnel
Hmm.
for myself. And I just never, I just refuse to give that up. And a major, major lesson I still remember it to this day. 4th grade. I think it was either 3rd or 4th grade. I played band. I was in band, and I was
Mm,
in like a special band class, like wind ensemble or something like that.
mm.
And I just wasn't feeling it, and I quit. And then my mom found out I quit, and she let me have it, man. She let me. She was like, "You will never ever quit in your life."
Mm.
And in that current moment, I was petrified. I was not trying
It's
to.
like, yo, it's just
I
an
was not
instrument,
trying
chill.
to. Yeah, yeah. I was not trying to deal with no problems mom had for me, but
Yeah.
it really stood with me. And there was a time too, even in my senior year of high school, I was still in band and I wanted to quit so bad,
Mm,
because I just didn't like it. I didn't care for it, to be honest. And my mom still kept me in it. And I think those things, those little values that of not quitting, being instilled in me at such a young age,
mhm.
really held firm and still is holding firm on who I am as a person and as a man.
Okay, so it's different than the research. I want to talk about your version first, and then I'll talk about the research a bit. And you can let me know what your thoughts are about it, because I'm curious about it.
Mhm.
Because I call it pivoting, is what I call it, but interesting. Okay, I like your thought process around quitting, because I'm trying to find which piece of research I want to connect it to here, but okay. I'm gonna connect it to CBT research, cognitive behavioral therapy, as a social worker. I'm gonna go to the social worker realm for a bit. But that you pull your past experiences impact your future endeavors. That's my saying. Your past experiences impact your future endeavors. All of your past experiences. So, what instrument did you play? Oboe, nice, nice. So so even though you play the oboe and it has nothing to do with football, that past experience of doing something that you hate, that you dislike, and still doing it regardless means that when you're on the football field, you can say, "Man, I hate this," but that wasn't as bad as playing the oboe. So if I can handle playing the oboe for all those years, I can handle this situation here. If I can take time to be able to master this stupid little note that I had to learn, I can take time to be able to master this offensive formation and all the different intricacies that can happen. If I can take time to be able to do X, Y, and Z, to be able to food prep, to be able to have that, to be able to work on a consistent basis, to be able to work out when it's 100 degrees outside and 60% humidity outside, then I can be able to handle this right here. So if people look at things, just dig into their past experiences is really, really helpful to see how that actually plays a role to your current position to where you are right now. So I think that whole process of quitting really helps you calibrate what you can and cannot do. And I found that you can do a whole lot when you just stick to your plan and then get that out of your mindset of like, I really want to quit right now. I really want to quit right now. Just like, no, 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 we're not quitting. That's not even an option. How can we push forward and how can we succeed? So now that your mind's not focused on quitting, because you trained your mind and your mom helped train your mind to never focus on quitting, now your focus and your mental processes are focused on something elsewhere. Your focus is now not 50% on quitting, 50% on continuing. It's, oh, no, no, no. It's 100% on continuing. So now I can actually think about ways I can be able to get better. So that's fascinating.
It's also interesting that you brought that up and broke it down like that, because literally since that moment I never thought about quitting.
Mm,
Like quitting just wasn't, and it is just not an option. If I start something, I finish.
mm,
Now I may take a couple detours, I might fall a couple times, but I won't fold completely.
mm,
No, I'm always gonna get back up. Always gonna get back up. And watching movies, I think movies too was a big thing that reinforced that, like Rocky.
mm.
Get up, get up.
I didn't even think of
You
Meek
know,
Mill. Get up.
yeah. No, for real. No, for real, really. Get up. You know, you might fall down on that
Yeah,
floor, but you gotta get up at the
yeah,
end of the day.
truth to
Right?
that.
And like that's really what it comes from. And life is not going to be perfect.
Hmm.
You're always going to get thrown an uppercut. You're always going to get thrown a left hook that catches you off guard. But how you respond is what really matters and says who you are at the end of the day.
Mm. See, now that aligns with the research on quitting, the taking detours. So let me read you what this says, not the paragraph, but the chart. So there's like a little chart here. I had to print this out because I want to forget it. All right, this is what the research says about what they call goal abandonment, which is basically quitting. The worst thing you can do, and they actually faded this out of the chart, is to have a same goal but then give up on the effort. So that just leads to basically distress and just because you have a goal of making to the NFL or whatever, but then you just put in no effort towards it. But then you have the same goal, which actually is actually a lot of people. They have a goal, they put absolutely zero effort towards it, and then they feel all distressed about it. It's like, well, you don't do any effort towards it. That's the worst thing you can do. That really is goal abandonment. Now, the making adjustments and taking different detours and what I call pivoting is something that happens all the time. So I think if someone reframed it in that sense, it could be helpful to some people. So one of them, there's like I'll say the other worst thing you can do. Then I'll talk about some good things. So the other worst thing you can do is to just give up on that goal and then have no new goal after that. So if you're like, all right, I don't want to be an NFL player anymore. I just don't know what I want to do anymore, and that's when you just like get into a rut of just doing nothing, and your life just kind of goes by. You're playing video games, you're eating a whole bunch because you have no goal in mind. It's the second worst thing you can do. If you're going to abandon your goal, quote unquote, there's three ways to do it based on the research, which I call it pivoting. One is to scale back to a limited goal, but keep it in the same domain. So let's say it's, I want to make it to the NFL, but then maybe you find a different passion with, like maybe you want to go into business or you want to go into like communications or you want to go to wherever the case may be. So, maybe you limit that goal like, all right, I don't want to go to the NFL, but I want to be able to be the best college player I can be because then I have this other passion I really like or want to be able to do. So you can limit your goal in that sense. And that's not quitting or whatever, but you can be able to make adjustments. That one has a potential for positive outcomes. The other two I like a lot. Choose an alternate path to the high order goal. And what the example that gave is so let's say, for example, I'll say one at a time. Yeah. So choose an alternate path to the high performance goal. So as far as sports go, things happen, right? So for one, you can literally fail. Like you can literally just get cut from teams or not make teams. You can literally fail. Two, you can get an injury. So that is going to set you back in a big capacity. Or three, you just end up retiring. Like just get older and you stop playing and you end up retiring. So and mostly for athletes right now, it's either you like don't make a team or you get injured. I think is one of the two biggest failures that happen. Actually, really injury is a really big one. I find this research can be helpful for people that deal with injury because they can feel like it's a failure. Really, is what it can feel like, but it's not a failure. But if you do get injured, you can choose an alternate path to the higher order goal, which is to still perform at a high level. So you can't train like you used to. You can't be on the field like you used to, but you can be able to take an alternate path to then study more film or to increase your IQ in that sense. You can be able to, let's say you injured your upper arms or whatever, you can then work on your legs and work on that flexibility in that sense. You choose a different path to still get to your ultimate goal of being the best you can on the field. So I see the research playing into the sports realm in that sense. Or there's a fourth one. I think this one is more for if you like get injured to the point where you actually can't play anymore, or you just get too old and well, you retire from it. But to form a new goal or new path to the same high order goal. I see that as like and NFL players do this all the time. They retire, then they become an analyst. So I can't play anymore, but I still want to be an impact in football. Or you have, is it Teddy Bridgewater who teaches his high school now, something like that? So Teddy
Yeah.
Bridgewater is like, I'm not playing anymore, but I still want to be able to have a connection to football. So I'm going to be able to teach high school. So as far as quitting goes, I think those two highlight for me, like choosing an alternative path, especially for athletes that's dealing with injury, or if like, an injury happens where you can't play anymore, or you're like, I don't love the game anymore, but I still want to be in contact with it, forming that new goal of like being a coach or being an analyst or straight up like sports performance, whatever that may be, is a possible path of quitting and still having potentially positive outcomes. What do you think about that research? Are you just like, no, that's Get that out of
Nah,
there.
nah, nah. I do agree with it. As you were speaking about it, I was thinking about my journey myself.
Hmm.
In college, I wanted to go to the NFL, and that clearly wasn't the route for me.
Hmm.
But I still wanted to keep playing, and I ended up coming across football overseas in Europe. I didn't even know about it
Yeah.
until someone I knew brought it up to me, and he had a fairly good career over there, and I was like, wow, it is possible. Let me try my shot, and then now I'm playing.
Yeah.
I'm still playing football. It's not what I initially intended or wanted for myself,
Hmm.
but it's a life where I'm still able to do what I love, but also experience new things. Just like if I made it to the NFL, I'd be experiencing new things
Yeah.
in a sense. So that's one thing that I do want to say to all the athletes, young, old, that the NFL or the CFL isn't the only path.
Hmm.
There's other areas, or there's other leagues to keep playing, right? And when you get into this position of professional athlete and free agent, you need film.
Hmm.
So you're better off joining a league, may not be the same quality, right? But you have film on yourself to keep yourself relevant in the
Hmm.
system, because that's what essentially it is. It's a system, right? The more time you spend off the system, the more you're going to get forgotten and replaced.
Right.
So it's all about keeping yourself relevant. And if you're good enough, they're going to find you.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to as well.
Yeah. So I think like me reading I'm gonna take a guess here and let me know. Me reading your story, I'm like, all right, cool, cool, cool. My path is I just looking at you, I was like, all right, I wonder if it's GFL dominate, then get to the European League dominate, and then make way back into the NFL or the CFL and just keep on building that ladder in that sense. Whether it's like making practice squad, dominating, taking advantage of your opportunities to make an active roster. Is that like where the level climb is at right now?
That's the goal for sure for myself.
Mm.
Um, Definitely aiming for the ELF right now, dominating that, just like you said, and then finding my way back here into the States, UFL
Oh
or
yeah.
CFL.
Yeah. Yeah. The European
NFL,
League.
I really don't care for it,
Mm.
to be honest with you. But CFL and UFL are definitely my aims when I come back here. Just to really challenge myself.
Yeah.
I have what it takes. I know I have what it takes, and I wanna I wanna continue to challenge myself and not settle.
Mm. Why the CFL and UFL over the NFL?
It's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I read a book. I read a book, and it kind of changed my whole perspective. I actually think I have it on me right now. No, I don't. But I think $40 million slave.
Mm.
I think that was I think that's the name of it. $40 million slave. I'll send it
Yeah.
when I find it. But I read that book, and it just changed my whole perspective of the mindset of how they wanted to mold an athlete, especially an African American athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Taking him away from his purpose and more so putting him through a system of producing for the sport, not for the people.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right here, I'm doing it for the people. I'm
Mm.
doing it to motivate. And not saying that being in the NFL, I won't be able to motivate,
Yeah.
but that's just not the direction I want to go to.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against the NFL. If
Mm.
somebody wants to go to the NFL, I'd be like, hey, shoot for it.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's important to know it's important to know yourself within that process of searching for it, because if you don't, you can get lost in the system, and I feel you can be controlled by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I want to dictate my journey in a sense, and not playing open my eyes to that. because
Mm,
I actually read that book while I wasn't playing,
mm.
while I had my year off. And I also think from I'm kind of rambling, but
No, no, this is good stuff.
for the CFL, I was thinking about it from a sense of family. It's a league where you get paid well enough and compensated well enough to start a family, take care of a family,
Mm,
and there's benefits that come to that as well. I'm thinking about the benefits. If my child grows up in Canada and he still goes to school in the States, he can get drafted in the CFL
mhm,
and in the NFL if
mm.
that's the direction that he still wanted to go to,
Yeah.
right? And playing football in the States is a big boost in the eyes of the CFL and the draft as far as the quality
Mm,
of talent that you're generally playing with. And then, just for the UFL, just same thing. It's just a different competitiveness.
mhm,
There's just a certain level of grit
mm.
playing back here in the States and in Canada and then NFL is a certain level of passion that's just intoxicating, man. And just
Yeah.
being a part of that is addicting.
Mm.
That for myself, and I just want to be around that again.
That's cool. I think that it's really important because it's about values. What you decide to take values in as a man, as a person, as a woman too. Like whatever the athlete's values are is extremely important. Because if you don't have a value system set up, this is like life stuff now. If you don't have a value system set up, you're lost by default. When you have a value system set up and there's different opportunities that come your way or different places that you might want to be at, you can compare that to how does that align with my value system. Ooh, it doesn't really align with my value system. Okay, so I want to make some changes, not with my values, but for maybe where my goal is going to be. Because everyone coming out of college is like NFL, NFL, NFL is kind of like the obvious pathway, but you can read something like, ooh, that's how the NFL operates. And you hear NFL athletes all the time. It's a business. It's like they understand it's a business. It's a business. It's just a business. So when you understand, like, okay, that this over here might align better with my values or with family. This is more important for family, whatever. That's like baseball players play like over 100 games a year. I don't know. I don't know if I would ever be a baseball player in the MLB because you're just constantly playing. So it's your values have to align with what you want, and everyone's values are different. Some people want to be NFL players. Some people want to be MLB players. Some people want to be tennis players that travel a whole bunch, but your values have to align with what you want. And I think going back to the research on goal abandonment is that pivoting bit. You know what I mean? So that's how I view it. Like your experience of okay, this opportunity is not here right now, but this opportunity is. I'm gonna go to GFL. And that can build into the EFL, ELF.
ELF,
That can build into
yes.
the ELF, and that can build into the CFL or the UFL. So this is
Hmm.
okay. My high order goal is still the same to play a highly
Yep.
competitive football and dominate. That never changes. But I'm going to choose
Hmm.
an alternate path to be able to get there. So that's why I'm glad you brought up quitting because someone could see that and be like, "Oh, that's." Someone could not see that, but someone can have an idea in their mind of if I don't make the NFL, that's quitting, right? Or that's a complete failure and I have to quit from that. But if they have that mindset, they don't understand like, yo, you can still have the same high order goal, just be cool with choosing an alternative path. And they can fall to that place where they have that goal, but don't put up any effort because they're sitting on the couch and they don't have any call offers. They went through 3 or 4 different like invitations to teams and didn't get anywhere. It's not like, oh, I can't play in the NFL. Just sit on my couch, I guess. It's like you can go to a European league. Ball players do that all the time. Like I know ball's a bit different because there's only like 4,500 NBA players ever, so that's a different numbers game. But it's like ball players do it all the time, play overseas all the time. Why don't you do that as a football player? If you see that as an opportunity, it's like, oh, all right, cool. Still the same goal. Let me just change the pathway I get there. It leads to potential for positive outcomes. You still have that drive. You'll still be able to make progress. And like you mentioned, you have film and you have tape. If you don't play for 2 or 3 years, like I think the Hassan Reddick situation is going to be very fascinating and interesting. Now he's playing for the Jets, but before he took time off. So it's like you're like 33 and you took time off. If you don't have any film, how you gonna get paid? So it's like understanding that how that works too is really fascinating. So I'm glad we got to touch on that aspect of quitting because even for me, it's is constant pivoting. My overall goal is to provide as much value as possible to as many people as possible. It can be inside short form, like posting short form Instagram things, and that wasn't really getting as much value out there. So, same goal, different path. The podcast route was interesting. Oh, this is fascinating. Oh, this is actually getting to where I want to go. Oh, cool. And then maybe I'm gonna always keep the podcast. The podcast is really great. Then I'm gonna like make another shift and another pivot to be able to get to where I want to go. So it's the quitting bit and the goal abandonment bit. I want to just rename that to just pivoting. Being open to pivoting is fascinating, and no one else has ever brought this up before. But I think this might be valuable for you. There's scientific research on luck. Luck is also fascinating. There's an equation for luck. Actually, it's an equation for high impact. There's an actual equation. I don't need these notes anymore. So the equation is luck times merit equals high impact. This is probably our last topic, but luck times merit equals high impact. There's an equation for luck. And actually, before I dive into that equation, there's scientific research where the most successful people are not the most talented. Sports world might be a bit of difference because your talent is, you can put that on tape, but the most successful people are not always the most talented. Actually, the most successful people on a scale of 1 to 10 are like a level 7 for talent. So what happens with luck, and this is like your situation, is your high impact might be defined as getting to the CFL or getting to the UFL, or in your case, the ELF is like the next step. That's the high impact. Now, your merit is going to be the tape that you have on film. It's going to be the first team all defense. That's your merit. Seeing the tape on film, that's your merit. Seeing your stat lines, that's your merit. Even this podcast can become a part of your merit. You send like a couple clips to a team, like, this is what my mindset is. I'm ready to work. You want to get a sense of my mindset, go listen to my podcast I'm on. That is all part of your merit. What you decide to post on social media, how you mentioned how you present yourself, that's all part of merit. When they go on your social media, do they see you trying to be like flexing for the gram, or do they see you like, no, this is how I work? That's all merit. The luck part comes into play, and you can actually determine to be more lucky. So and you already done this actually, being more open to experiences, being more open to different thought processes that are happening. When your brain is open for that, then you are able to get luckier. For example, being open to different thought processes. You talk about your mentor. If you weren't open to those thought processes, you wouldn't be able to gain the valuable information out of it. If you weren't open to new opportunities, when someone mentioned to you, if you see everything as an opportunity, when that person mentioned to you, like, yo, you ever thought about going to a European league to play football? Because you were literally open to that opportunity, then you actually try out for that. And then next thing you know, your first team all defense. Yeah, you put in work for that, but you were open to that opportunity. That is luck that that person happened to mention that to you. That's just sheer luck. But through that luck, when you have luck with the merit, you create a high impact. And your high impact is first team all defense. And then you have another high impact. That's how the equation for luck works. I think what people miss is just the key factor of it is being open to new experiences and new ideas, and then having the merit to back it up. Because it's just lucky. If you go into if you're an athlete, if you're a high school level athlete and you get invited to a college and you're like, I don't want to go to that college, I'm not going to go. But if you just decide to go, you run into a certain individual, a certain person, and you get lucky and you're like, oh, actually, this program is pretty dope. And you have the merit to back it up because you have your film, you have your tape, but then you go to that college and make a high impact. If you're already a Division I athlete or a D2 athlete, whatever the case may be, if you see everything as an opportunity, just see it as an opportunity. You don't have to do every opportunity. That's not what I'm saying, but see everything as an opportunity. Your coach that you hate says, yo, your stance is you're like, yo, F you, coach. You're like, no, your stance is shit. If you see it as an opportunity, like, well, man, let, let me see it as an opportunity. Hold on a second. You go back, you watch the film, like, oh, my stance actually slows me down. Should make these different adjustments. I thought my defensive coach was an ass, but he's on to something here. So you make that change, you make that shift because you see it as an opportunity, or you can look at it and be like, no, he's not, and he's not correct. Like the way I'm doing it is perfectly fine. But if you just see different things as an opportunity, you can be able to make a high level impact, and that's really the most successful people are actually the most lucky people. So luck is fascinating. Let me know what you think about that, and then we'll wrap things up.
Now I started thinking about my stance right now. Like, man, maybe he's not lying.
Yeah.
Maybe he's on to
It's
something.
on
He's
its
on
own,
to something.
yeah.
I do agree. I do agree, man. I just never thought about it like that. You know, I just that luck that you talk about, I contribute that to my faith
Mm-hmm.
that I have. Like having my eyes open to see and my ears open to hear.
Yeah.
And adding those two aspects in together to match it with my merit that you were bringing up. Very very insightful. That's
Yeah.
not what I was thinking, but um, I also think being spiritually, like having faith in a higher power, whether that be ancestors or for some people God.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that plays a big part because I feel that because I believe in my ancestors, and I feel like they show me signs every day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to me to recognize that, and just played right into the luck.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't luck. Maybe it's something that they want me to see. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's something that he wants me to see, and if I'm open enough and willing enough to accept what it is, then maybe the things that I apply to, that change that's needed for me to apply to that, works out for my favor.
Right.
So it's I definitely like that you brought that up.
Cool. Cool. I like it. I like that you did it. It's fascinating because I think, and it's so many different ways people can take it. From the spiritual standpoint, there's other research too about if you feel like luck is totally out of your hands, then you feel kind of like lost in a sense to where you don't have any control, any locus of control. So I know on the spiritual side, people can kind of go all the way over, and it's like whatever plans God has for me, they have for me. It's like, all right, but dude, you gotta do something. Like
Got to
God's not just
work.
gonna just like give you
Got
like
to do the work.
gifts in your lap. Like you gotta like whatever
Yep.
God has for me, He has for me, and that's like that's cool. But in the sports world, you gotta put in the work. So if you put in like you gotta have the merit, like because God could be like, yeah, I'm trying to tell you, bro, like this coach likes you, like whatever God has. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you, like go to practice because coach actually likes you. Like that's my message for you. And you're just like God will make it happen. Like damn it. So I feel like on the spiritual level, on the spiritual side of things, having that mindset of you know just that is maybe my faith is trying to tell me something. I gotta have my eyes open to it to be able to receive the blessings. If my eyes aren't open to it, I'm gonna miss those blessings. And if someone is not spiritual, it's still the same thing. You got to be open to the concrete opportunities, the earthly opportunities in front of you, or else you're going to miss that opportunity. If you go to that party, like if it doesn't matter what you do, sports aside too, because college athletes are college athletes. You still have the academic side of things. If your major is engineering, which or if you're doing D1 sports and engineering, kudos. So if you're engineering and you can either go to a party that night or you go to an engineering event that night and you decide to go to that party, you cannot participate in that luck because you're not there. You go into that engineering thing, you end up meeting someone who is lucky that you meet them there and they can have a pathway for you to say, hey, yo, once you get done with college, if you want to go pro, that's cool. But if not, let me know because I have this internship opportunity for you. So next time you're looking for internships, here's my card. And just because you're open to the opportunity of even going to that location in that environment, you're able to take advantage of the luck. And if your merit backs that, then you can have a high impact. The issue is you have one hit wonders to where like you get lucky, but you have no merit. And then you have a high
Mhm.
impact, but it's short lived. You know what I mean? So you got to
Mhm.
have that whole both luck and that merit to be able to make that high impact work. So that's cool, man. This conversation was dope. This conversation was dope. I like all the different avenues that we went to and how it all ties in all together. So this is cool, man. This is cool.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Let me know if you have any last final questions for me, man.
No. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Okay, I like that.
That's a merit. That's the merit right there.
Yeah. Yeah, proper preparation
But
prevents poor performance.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you for having me on your platform. Definitely insightful and learning, exchanging wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm all about. So I appreciate you for that and giving your time out
I
for me.
appreciate you for that too, man. I think it's definitely be able to learn off of each other, and other people listening can learn off of this too, and just gain different perspectives and different knowledge, man. Cool, cool.